Nursing students, time to talk. Welcome to the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast, Season 4, Episode 2.2. I'm your good and faithful host, Michael Smith. Thank you for continuing to subscribe to the show. Write into the show at realtalknursing@gmail.com or use Facebook Messenger or contact us through Instagram or Twitter to share your experiences, ask questions, and give feedback. Thank you for supporting our friends, affiliates, and sponsors. Thank you to everyone who started following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. More listeners means more and better shows. Make sure to share the episode with classmates and especially underclassmen and cohorts. Let's give a hand up to those who are coming behind us. Welcome to our community of fun, engaged, and supportive nursing students and nurses. Don't forget to reach out to us and let us know if you have any announcements for graduations, good grades, difficult tests, friends who want to help congratulate, and your announcement will be featured on the show. If you like the show, the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Libsyn Web Player, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So, go to wherever you download podcasts, subscribe, rate us, review us, write into the show, smash that subscribe button. Remember to leave only 5-star reviews because that's the only rating that counts to get us noticed by more nursing students. We have a lot to get through again today. Again, I'm excited to introduce to you our guest for this 2-part episode. This is part 2 of our interview with Robert P. Harris, RN, author of the book, The Flight Nurse Bible, A Field Guide to Awesomeness. So without further ado, let's get it going. All right, so welcome to part 2 of the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast with myself, Michael Smith, and my guest, Robert P. Harris, RN, CEN, all of the alphabet soup after that. So let's let's talk about nursing school a little bit. So here, let me adjust the mic and stuff a little bit. Sorry about that. So you talk about in the book, and I've talked about before too, the fastest way to get into the profession. And you and I seem to agree that every month that you're not a nurse, and we've alluded to this beforehand, costs you potential income. And you talk about this in the first part of your book, that if you're taking one class at a time, for example, you're making a huge sacrifice of time and money for good grades, in addition to perhaps not taking the opportunity to stress test yourself and stress test your time and stress management skills. And if you're taking classes one at a time because you have a lot of stuff going on in your life outside of school, like we talked about before, and you can't handle more than one class at a time, you're going to have to figure out stuff. And then, because once you're in nursing school, you generally don't have a choice to take one class at a time. You don't get that. I mean, it's whatever they tell you you're going to take. Because a lot of schools seem to be in that kind of cohort thing where everybody's, you go through as a group.
May I have another?
Yes,
sir, may I have another?
Yep. And so you want to know that you have all of that time and stress management skills before you get into the program, not after. But the point is that, if you could be taking 2 classes at a time, for example, and you take one, you're essentially doubling the amount of time that it takes to get through nursing school and by extension becoming a nurse. And so by the math, because I've done the math 100 times now, you're costing yourself between like $3,000 and $5,000 per month. And if that doesn't get you moving,
yes,
I don't know what would. So the question is, leading into this nursing school part, from your perspective out in California and other places that you've kind of looked at, are you seeing the pressure in the acute care setting like hospitals versus pre-hospital for decreasing the number of associate degree nurses versus BSN nurses that are being hired? And furthermore, this is a long question, if someone with a basic 2 to 4 years of acute care experience comes to flight nursing, are many getting hired from there who have yet to go beyond their ADN? So if they still just have their ADN, and I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to say it like just their ADN.
Mike, I can run with that. I know what you're getting at.
But you know what I mean?
Know.
Like, I'm not talking, I'm not talking about somebody who has 10 years of hospital ER experience who has their ADN.
We're talking about people that are hungry to dive in.
Right. So are you seeing that there's a focus on bringing in more people with BSNs even after the prerequisite of having 2 to 4 years of experience before going to flight?
My overall opinion, which is what this is, about the ADN BSN debacle facing a lot of people. Okay. It's all about resume building. It's all about shortcutting these paths. Getting the ADN starts the stopwatch. You're not going to get the dream jobs, whether it's the 2 to 4 year experience where, like you talk about, we have to acquire before we go to like the flight world or whatever.
Right.
Or what have you. It's even if you just want to go ER, typically you're not allowed to apply for, like I talked about how I was so fortunate in the first segment. We talked about how I was so lucky because I was an LVN working in an ER, and then I graduated and they let me stay in the ER as an RN.
Yeah.
That was so amazing. Typically you don't get offered ER as a new grad.
I almost did not. I mean, I was really lucky because I worked in an ER, and my manager from the ER that I was working in as a tech called the manager who had talked to her and said, I'm considering doing a new grad, or I'm considering bringing a new grad on. And she just said, hey, just in case you're thinking about it, I mean, it was super lucky. And this guy brought me on, and holy crap.
Yeah, it's so rare that people get the new grad ER out the gate, and it's such a blessing for those of us that are able to pull that off.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, this is a huge, I mean, this is your barbecue and this is your amazing podcast that I love. Michael Smith, Real Talk School of Nursing podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, he cares about you. He's not doing this to get rich. He's doing this because he wants you to succeed. But I tell everybody, and Michael will agree with me on this, everyone talks about how you get your first job, and is the ADN going to set me up? Am I going to have this? You got 2 years of nursing school to. I love to call it this, Kardashian hustle your way into your first nursing job. I mean, people like to poke fun at those ladies and say they're not hard workers. That is ridiculous. Those ladies are some of the hardest working ladies you're ever going to meet. I think one of those ladies just became the youngest billionaire in history or something like that. Anyway, my point is, he got 2 years of nursing school at an ADN program to Kardashian hustle your way into an ER gig or an acute care gig or something that'll help set you up well. And I hope Michael likes that and uses that in the future. But it's just that just has such a great vibe to it, because you know how hard those ladies work to just wheel and deal. But I don't worry about the ADN thing, and I tell others not to either. It only really matters in elite setting. Now, this varies state by state, county to county, city by city. That's one of the most infuriating things about healthcare in America, is the inconsistency place to place to place. And we were talking about the same thing with the colleges of what transfers here and what transfers. It's like the Wild West in so many of these situations. Typically, magnet hospitals, your big corporations,
yep,
are, they're pushing for all this healthcare 2020 guideline stuff,
yep,
and they're trying to increase the amount of ER nurses that have certifications, CENs. They're trying to increase the overall amount of staff that have BSNs versus ADNs, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these different things. And I get that, and I'm 100% all about that. And I think people should take it to whatever level they can. But you got to look out. I much more prefer, and this is up to the individual. And Michael, you've sort of ramshackle pieced together your life the way I have, one step at a time, one ladder rung at a time. And so you're probably more likely than somebody who hasn't gone through it yet to be on my side with this. But I like the ladder rung at a time. The get the associates, boom, next ladder rung, start the clock. Okay, make a plan. What do I want to do next?
But I think it does depend, though, because for example, somebody who's nursing is a second degree for so many people. Probably half of my graduating class, were people who who are working on a second degree or a second career. And
you're right. That's a good point. It depends on who we're talking to.
But even so, I think from my perspective, if you're going to go and get an ADN, you should have a plan for getting your BSN. So if you have an interview or something like that, and they're like, we're really kind of trying to concentrate more on bringing more BSNs in. And you're like, I'm already enrolled.
Well, that's great because I start in December.
Yep, I'm already enrolled.
Exactly.
So with that caveat, go ahead.
No, I agree with you completely. You're a master's level, right?
I am. Yep.
Yeah, I knew that. I was just, letting you say it to the audience. No, that's impressive. I'm not there yet, man.
It was so much paper. It was so much. It was just the research. It was all the extra research. It was all the. Honestly, I'm not really sure. I am sure.
Though, man. Good for you.
I am 100% sure that there are at least a dozen ADN prepared nurses in my department who could nurse circles around my butt.
Right.
My ability, the for whatever reason, I can't really say why for sure, because I haven't read all of the studies that are available out there that the Institute of Medicine and Healthcare 2020 goals are based on, but and I probably should know that better. I know I should probably know it better. But the point being
an ER nurse. Go ahead.
Well, I don't really understand why.
Sometimes you don't have to worry. You don't have time to worry about paperwork.
Well, but there's I'm not really sure what the effectiveness of having a BSN over an ADN is, or why there's a much higher concentration of people who want to go and get their master's degree. I kind of understand the DNP and the LPN thing because what was it, the 2012? I think it was a 2012 study where like 9 out of 10 physicians are actively discouraging family members and friends from going into medicine. And so the number of providers, like the number of providers who are like, if we think there's a nursing shortage, wait 5 years until the number of people who are going into medicine at the provider at the MD level significantly goes down, because there's a ton of people who are in the 40, 50, 60 age range, and they're going, well, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I think I'm going to go home. And then what do they do? Because they can go, you know what? You guys are making this so difficult. You guys are making this such a pain in the butt to practice my craft that I'm just gonna go home. I've made good money for a number of years. I've invested well. I have saved up my money, and I'm just gonna go home because it's not worth the time. And I understand why there's an increased number of LPN and an increased concentration on
LPN,
DNPs and stuff like that.
LPN to me means licensed.
Or sorry, not LPN.
NPs?
NPs, yeah, nurse practitioners. Sorry,
I didn't mean to.
No.
I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the same thing.
No. That's a good catch. It's a good catch. So that I understand from the provider level. I completely understand why that's happening. I don't really understand.
That makes sense.
From a tactical standpoint, I don't really fully understand why an ADN is that much different from a BSN, except for the discussion that I had in my last podcast where I talk about, at some point hospitals are going to go, well, if you want us to pay somebody with an associate's degree $80,000 or more a year, we're going to start requiring that they have at least a dang bachelor's degree.
Agreed. Yes. This is the way I look at it. Essentially what you just said. I got my bachelor's degree. I like to joke. I actually earned my bachelor's like a week before my 30th birthday. I like to joke, it took me 12, what's the Forrest Gump quote? After 12 years of doing medicine, I got myself a college degree. I mean, but the BSN, they leave you alone. Like, nobody cares. Like, I can walk into any magnet hospital in the country with the BSN and be put at the top of the pile, competitive for a job.
Right.
As an ADN, I may not. I acknowledge that to people listening. If you finish your ADN, you may not be ready for primetime player. You may get thrown to the bottom of a pile if you're going for your dream job at a magnet hospital. But here's the way to look at that. For the first year, you're a new grad anyway. You're not getting that job you want to begin with. And if you start immediately the clock on your nursing career at the ADN and then start your BSN online or day a week or whatever you're doing, then essentially within a year or two, and by the time you're in the ballpark for getting your dream job anyway, then you'll be coming around to the BSN mark. And then you'll be not a new grad and have a BSN, and then the world is yours, and you can literally go work the next 40 or 50 years of your darn life with that BSN without there being any problems. And you only need an MSN if you want to teach or get in. Oh, I mean, there's 100 things you can do in MSN. That's not what I mean. But I mean, like, the big draws typically for people to get an MSN, or at least the way I look at it, is to be an educator or to be in management. Yep. I don't really have any desire to be in management, and I'm far too un-PC to ever be a professional educator. So I don't have any. I know. I'm admitting this straight up. I don't have any physical need for a master's, and yet I want one. Like, I'm like kind of bored. Like, I want to get one because I know I'm going to need it eventually somehow. But at the same time, I can't quite justify it right now.
But see, that's the thing, though, is that the people, and this is just my perspective. Everybody's got an opinion, right? But my perspective is that we need people like you who are not completely field driven, but field driven. You have tons of field experience.
I'm a worker bee. I'm a rogue Jedi worker bee out there handling business. That's all I'm good at. I'm not a leader. So I'm a worker.
I view it a lot like the federal government, and I don't want to get into politics, but at the founding of our country was founded by farmers and people who were like, I have this other profession. I'm trying to do this thing over here, but I have a profession. Yes. Yeah. John Adams. I mean, he thought he was a farmer the entire time. So when Congress wasn't meeting or whatever, he was at his farm, with elbow deep in pig crap.
Right. Well,
I think there's a need for that in education. There's a need for somebody like you, who goes, I understand the philosophical blah, blah, blah of the philosophical blah, blah, blah. But let me tell you how life is.
Right.
And if you're doing research, so if you went out and got your MSN, you're going to have to do a master's thesis. Sorry, it sucks. It's ridiculous. But boy, would I like to.
I have to take your word on it. I'm not that advanced yet. I don't have that. But
yeah, but dude.
Again, hey, and everybody listening. I mean, come on, take your hat off. That's impressive. That's impressive. I got one of my closest buddies just finished his DNP, and all I could say, I just gave him a hug. I'm like, man, I can't even imagine what you've been through in the past 2 years. He was like crying. Like, he was like, yeah, I almost lost my. He almost lost his lover, and he almost, he had like a custody fight, and like his whole life fell apart while he was living this doctoral thesis stuff. And I mean, there's a certain element of like your life isn't crazy enough, Michael. You just had to ramp it up to that next level and go for the MSN. I mean, that's but that's awesome, man. I mean, good for you. You're a powerhouse.
But I mean, really. But the point is that. I would rather read something that you decided that you were going to come up with. So my master's thesis was on veteran suicide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was buoyant, let me tell you. but I would rather read a paper written by someone who hates writing papers and wants it to be something I don't care about the cardiovascular depression of shrimp over the last 25 years and how that and how that relates to global warming, effects on humans. I mean, that may or may not be a thing. I don't know. But if you're listening out there and you're looking for a research project topic, you're welcome. But I would rather hear something about, how does this medication and how does this protocol and how long term, how does this protocol, how has this affected nursing practice in the field? I would rather read something from you than from any one of my instructors.
Sure. Well, yes. And there's, there's a difference between anecdote and instruction. And then there's a difference between clinical instruction and abstract instruction, and not to plug the book, but, in the Flight Nurse Bible, it's all abstract instruction, which is just to say it's literally called a field guide to awesomeness. And that's just all it is. It's just a book full of tips, tricks, and things that are interesting. And there are a couple stories, but this isn't a book of memoirs. This isn't, it's just a few anecdotes that are designed to tell a specific story. But you hit upon a really interesting thing, and I'm a member of the the ENA, same as you, I'm sure, and the AACN, the Association for Critical Care Nurses, and I get all these journals, and some of them are really cool. You look at like violence reports, and you look at these human trafficking reports, and it really changes the way you feel about things, and you educate yourself, and they're really cutting edge studies, and some of them are super worthwhile and awesome. And I'm so inspired. I'm like, man, I could totally do a master's on that. Or maybe I want to do a DNP on that. And then I flip the page, and I'm looking at the 5th study I've seen this year, and it's literally titled, Call Bell Effectiveness. And it's like they throw $100,000 worth of grant money just to prove that call bells work. It's like, yes, we know call bells work. It's like, is that still something we're questioning? That's just a random example, but it's like, oh my goodness, non-stick needles prevent more needle sticks. Like, oh my goodness, wow, do we need to waste $500,000 in grant money to come to that conclusion? And yet they keep writing the same paper with the same topics. And I don't mean that as an insult to any of the educators that do that, but sometimes you read these topics in these journals and you're just like, what inspired someone to make that their goal? And I don't want to be negative, but it's like something I like to say about healthcare that I alluded to earlier. And maybe this is just me being a drama queen, which I'm famous for being, but this ain't retail. I'm not trying to sell you a sofa. I'm trying to save your damn life. I want it nitty gritty. I want it powerful. And I want it to be something that will leave an impact. I don't got time for trying to decide whether or not Sharpie things go poke. I mean, we got bigger problems. This ain't retail. And so I like to keep things nitty-gritty and legit. And yet, if it was up to me, we'd be living in the, not up to me, if I was the highest intelligence that humanity had reached, we'd be living in caves still trying to invent fire. I'm not any of these advanced scientists that are giving us vaccinations and cures for diseases. And I'm clearly a rough and tough, down in the street kind of guy. I'm not any sort of scholar. So, I need to stay in my lane. But
no, but again,
sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, really? That's the topic?
Right. But again,
what I mean? It's frustrating.
But again, from a tactical standpoint, and what's gonna, I think, so many times a lot of the research that's out there, researchers are publishing and researching things for other researchers, not necessarily for the street fighters. Because, dude, right. I mean, if anybody in the profession qualifies as a street fighter, it's guys who, it's our paramedics and EMTs. It's our,
and ER nurses and flight nurses and trauma surgeons.
I'm telling you.
The people that make the difference between, bad stuff happening to you and death. Anything that stands between you and death in that first few hours of bad stuff, those are your first line responders. And that's everybody. I mean, that's right down to the SICU nurses post-surgery.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, if we run it out a little bit longer on a time frame, we start getting into the step down units and all that. I mean, it's like, yes, it's really, really easy. And yes, I wrote a book called The Flight Nurse Bible. Yes, I'm well aware of the arrogance involved in that. But it's about being proud of being an RN. If you're an RN at any level, or in school to be an RN at any level, you just have to appreciate the badass club you're getting ready to join. Like, you're about to be initiated into the greatest fraternity, arguably, ever. Like, this whole podcast is Michael's dream, Michael's goal is to inspire the minds, eager young minds, of new nurses or potential nurses or nursing students. And you're about to join the craziest, goofiest, most badass cult on earth. And if you're not excited, then re-listen to the past 5 minutes, because your life is about to become a chapter in a novel.
So, bringing us back around to the subject that we had. So you are or you're not seeing a decrease in.
I don't know, Mike. I don't know, Michael. I'm not sure.
You know what I mean, though?
I'd have to run the numbers on it. I encourage people to get the ADN first, but a lot of people already have a bachelor's degree, like you said. And then I'm like, well, do you need 2 bachelor's degrees? Because you're getting to the top of the pile with a bachelor's degree. Unless it's a BA. If it's a liberal arts BA, Bachelor of Arts, then you're going to need to convert that to a BS. But if you have a general BS, like you were going to go to PA school and then that didn't work out, now you're going to RN school, then I don't think you need a BSN. But there's so many fast programs for people with BSs already to get the BSN. It really just depends about your geographical location and what schools are available.
I do really like your advice, though, when it says, okay, well, in order to be a flight nurse, you need 3 years of experience. And it doesn't really, I mean, at some point, maybe it doesn't really matter what you're doing. If you're on a med-surg unit, great. If you can do a med-surg unit for a year and then get into an ER, great.
Do what you got to do.
Do what you got to do. And, and you're working towards your BSN the whole time. Just get your foot in the door with the ADN. I think that advice is really, really pretty solid. Pretty solid.
And from the first time we talked, Michael, that was one of our hugest agreements. We both seem to be preaching that pretty powerfully to people. So so that's where I'm at with it. But it really does boil down state to state, where you're at, what your situation is, and maybe you're second acting, maybe I really don't know. That's why hey, if you want to know for you personally, I'm sure Michael would be happy to talk to you, or all my contact info is available online. Shoot me an email. I'll give you some free life coaching. I know Michael will do the same, or whatever. We'll help you out. We're here to help you guys. Let us know.
Or write into the show, and I'll answer the question, because
write into the damn show, and we'll help you out.
I mean, what do you get told in class all the time? Is like, well, if you have a question, you should raise your hand and ask, because if you're wondering that, other people might be too.
Other people are too.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and let's go through the 12 flight nurse commandments.
Oh boy,
that's a good one. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll do a word from one of our sponsors here, and I have no idea which one. We're just gonna go with it. So it'll be a surprise to everybody. Are you tired of the same old badge reel? Do you have to wear the same scrub color as everyone else? Are your undershirts boring and kinda stinky after wearing your lucky shirt through 5 in a row 12s? You can wear your personality in other ways. Go to badgeladybynerdwear.com and check out her massive selection. Tell her you're a Real Talk School of Nursing podcast listener and use the promo code REALTALK20 at checkout for 20% off your order. Expect 2 to 3 weeks for custom orders and a few days depending on her actual job schedule, because she's a real nurse, to get your badges made and shipped. I know you'll treat her like your best friend at clinicals, so go to badgeladybynerdwear.com and order the coolest custom and original badge reels out there. Go to badgeladybynerdwear.com and use the promo code REALTALK20 for 20% off your order. That's Badge Lady by nerdwear.com, and use the promo code REALTALK20 for 20% off your order. All right, so I really wish that I need to start recording like about 60 seconds before I actually do, because that's some of the funniest stuff that we do.
Yeah,
right.
I remember last time you were like, we talked for like a half hour afterwards, and you were like, "Man, I wish we would have recorded that." I'm like, "I know, that was like better than the whole interview."
It was better than the whole. It was better than our whole our whole initial conversation. All right, so we're talking about the book. What is this?
Right,
what is this book called? I can't remember.
Well, it's so difficult to remember, Michael. It's the Flight Nurse Bible, a field guide to awesomeness, available anywhere fine books are sold. And I hear good things. It's got words in it, just like the best books ever written, Michael. I'm telling you, words and everything.
Do you have the best words?
I have a lot of them, and I might even use the word best a few times.
Oh, good. Okay.
There's lots. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's no, I try to add a little chill sun into my game here, when I can, and and the biggest arms and the greatest charms, and only on pay-per-view. You got to have an element of showmanship to this, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to write a fun book for people that maybe have some aspirations for critical care nursing, and they want to, or just medicine in general, and they want to get an informal, deep end of the pool approach to some stuff. And so I just, I've been in the field a couple decades now, and I just compiled a whole bunch of thoughts and fun little anecdotes and whatnot, and this is what came out. And it's got a beautiful cover, hot pink desert sunrise with a beautiful helicopter profile, and I took the picture myself, and it even looks good on a shelf. Even if you don't know how to read, you should buy this book and put it on a shelf, I'm telling you. And you can learn how to read, then you can read it. It's fantastic. And you can find that on Amazon.com, and check me out on LinkedIn. And there's a great community, as of course, through Michael's links and the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast links and different social media outlets. You're going to find more and more links to community. This is a very magnanimous profession. People want to help other people. They talk about nurses eating their young. That's a huge thing you hear about. Oh, nurse bullying, nurses eating their young, nurse bullying. I don't know where that's happening. I rarely ever see that. I know it does happen, and I'm not saying it doesn't. But I don't see that. I really don't. Unless I'm the one doing it. I'm just not aware of it. But nobody's called me out on it. I more often see nurses just taking people up under their wings and being wildly magnanimous with their time, and I know people are having bad experiences out there, and I'm sorry if you're one of those people, but I think nurses generally tend to be more big brother, big sister than bullies. But maybe I've just been fortunate. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I've seen it both. I really have. Yeah. I think I mean, if we're gonna go off into this tangent, let's go off into it.
Well, sorry, man.
No. Again, it's the some of the best conversations we've had is when we're just completely going off on a tangents, and it's unrelated to the focus of what our original push was, but it's great. I think it's a great conversation. So let's talk about bullying a little bit. Number one, I think that if you are a person, not a nurse, you're just a person, and let's just say that almost every person who comes up to you asks the same friggin' question over and over and over again. Let me play out a real life example. So in my emergency department, there is a door next to one of the nurses' stations. It's the in-only door. So if you are being brought into the emergency department from the waiting room, this is the in door.
Okay.
There's also an outdoor, which is separate, which is part of our which is part of our security plan, right? So we don't have people going out the indoor and in the outdoor, right? So
right.
they are
It's set
two
up like
very
a kitchen.
right.
Yeah.
They are very, very different. They are very far apart. And we have giant blaze orange signs on the indoor. So when people are going out, it says exit with a giant arrow pointing to the next door. In
English, you'd think it would be easy.
It's bright. It's a bright blaze orange sign.
Right.
And it says, not an exit. It says exit that away with a big arrow and all that kind of stuff. And 40 times a night, 40 times an hour, 40 times a minute, people go and it's like, gook, 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 the alarms go off and it's like, somebody's trying to escape or, whatever it is. And we have to tell people, it's like, read the sign. We don't say read the sign. That would be rude. But, like, it's the next door down. It's the next door down. Go down to the other one, whatever. But it's the same thing. I think sometimes when you get a large crowd or the repetitiveness of the same question over and over and over again, I think anybody would be like, oh my God, I can't answer this question one more dang time and keep my sanity. Yes, you absolutely can do that. No, it's not a big deal, or whatever the answer is. And I think nurses can sometimes get frustrated with nursing students who don't know any better, who come in and ask questions because it's the first time that they've been exposed to whatever it is. And so I think, and
I wasn't even really thinking about it as abusing the nursing students. That's a whole separate conversation.
Well, but nursing students are new grads or whatever it is. And but at the same time, I think all of us, I've been for the last 6 months, I've been on a 3-in-1 schedule. So I have, and I'm overnights. So I have 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 3 days off. So the only time that I get more than 1 day off in a row is every other weekend. And I'm tired and I'm frustrated and my eating schedule is off and my sleeping schedule is off and I'm constantly flipping back and forth, between that. Now, and so I go back to work.
Quick, Michael, let me throw a life preserver out to your audience for a second. Michael does this voluntarily because he's a go-getter and he's an insane person and he's an overachiever. And that's why he makes so much money and that's why he's so successful. You don't have to work yourself to death like that. Michael's just an abnormal human being who can pull it off. All right, continue, Michael. Sorry, I just wanted to throw a life ring to the students.
I am abnormal. Yes, I am abnormal. But but I'm tired, And so when somebody asks me, if I was in the situation where somebody asked me the same dumb question that I get 40 times a week, I'd be like, look up here. You know what the resource is? Solve your own damn problem. You got this.
Yeah.
Like stop bugging me about this dumb thing over and over again. And I talked about it in the last podcast because there was this nursing student who was having this problem, where their nursing clinical group was just kind of being ignored on this one floor, and it was just this one instance, or not the one instance, but this one facility where they were having this issue. And I said, it might be the culture, but it might also be, nursing on a med-surg unit is hard as heck. You could have everything going right, and then you could get in there, you could do your assessments, you could get all the way through morning meds, and everything's going great, and then one person, a total care patient, has a large bowel movement, and you have to.
There goes the next hour and a half of your life. Yeah.
There, hour and a half, 2 hours, and you got to ask like 2 other nurses and 2 other NAs to come in and help you out and do all this kind of stuff. And everybody's job, everybody's timeline is screwed at that point. And
Yep.
and then you add students in there who are going, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And at a lot of hospitals,
Like, sit down, shut up, and get out of my way. I mean, yeah.
But like, well, you can't even
Yeah.
go get meds for me because you're not allowed to at this
Yeah.
hospital. And we talked about the gap between what a hospital will allow nursing students to do because of the high acuity of patients that are now occupying our acute care spaces, and
Right.
and what we expect new grads to do upon graduation. And there's a big gap between those things. And so, it's like, okay, well, we're not allowed, you as a nursing student, you're not even allowed to do most of the stuff that would actually be useful right now. So I don't even know what to do with you. And so I don't think that bullying from a nurse to a nursing student is necessarily bullying as much as it is probably frustration on the part of nurses who are going, we want them to learn this stuff, but we're not allowed to teach them this stuff. And
also, it just occurred to me, Michael,
yeah,
you and I are military.
Yes.
You and I are military men. We're from that background, and you and I know what it's like to day in and day out for years and years and years on end, just be freaking screamed at and just
well, okay, well, hold on.
Maybe what I think of as bullying isn't what some snowflake who's never been talked down to in their life thinks is bullying. So maybe I'm just so crass and hardened and damaged that I'm not registering abuse as abuse. I'm just offering that up as why maybe I don't see this huge problem of bullying that exists. Maybe my threshold for abuse is just very high. What do you think about that?
Well, first off, I was an officer, so I didn't really get yelled at all that often.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
unless it was me and I did the couple of times where I do remember screaming matches, it was between me and my platoon sergeant, and those were some of the best times of my life. I loved that so much because I mean, this is a complete tangent, but
go for it.
Oh yeah, it was fun because he had his mission as a non-commissioned officer, and I had my mission as a commissioned officer, and we're going in opposite directions, and it almost came to blows. And at the end, but it was awesome. It was awesome because we got done with that, and we're like, okay, now I understand why you are the way you are. And
resolution through conflict. It's actually very powerful.
And we had this field problem. We were on Bradley's, and we had this gunnery table we had to do and stuff like that. But I tell you what, whatever kind of disagreements that we had as far as like leadership and mentorship, well, no, as far as like training regimens go and stuff like that, when we got out into the field, and this is directly translatable to two people who disagree philosophically on nursing skills, nursing philosophies, we got into the field, and it was magic. It was magic. I didn't have to communicate to him. He didn't have to communicate to me. We just interacted with each other and supplemented each other what we were doing, and it was magic.
And a beautiful universality.
Oh, it was so cool. It was so cool, and that was so fun because you had this. We had this great relationship where it's like, yeah, we got the screaming match out of the way. We're good now. We're good.
Yeah, and you're like sisters or brothers, and you might have another one next week.
Yeah.
Brothers fight like brothers. I mean, that's what you do. You're honest with each other. You're not mincing words, and some of my greatest nursing mentors have been some of the biggest jerks I've ever met, and yet they've ended up being my best friends.
Yeah, and I certainly had disagreements, and what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say consternation, but I'm not really. Inner conflict.
Vindication?
No. I had some inner conflict about some of the things that each one of my nurse preceptors had said or done or, during my orientation phase. And I tell you what, though, one especially.
You found yourself conflicted by others' leadership characteristics.
Sure, yeah, I was very conflicted, and now that I'm out, and I trust both of them implicitly. I was talking to one the other day, and I said to my preceptor, I go, boy, if I ever come in through the ER and you're working, I will just tell. I was like, is he working? Put me in his room. I don't care if you have to kick a sepsis person out, or if I have to wait an extra 2 hours to be, under his care. That's who I'm going to, And I would do that for either of my preceptors, and either of these guys who I'd had some pretty significant consternation over, I trust implicitly. Because they they didn't just have my best interests in mind. They didn't just have the hospital's best interests in mind. They didn't just have the patient's best interests in mind. They had everybody's interests in mind, and they taught me the true intersection between all of those things, and it was a hard lesson to learn. And I suppose had I been a different person, I could have seen some of it as bullying. I could have, but I don't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I don't.
But your leadership skills, it's so interesting, the roles that people pick up in their life and the way they portray those roles throughout their life. For example, you were a leader of men or women, on general. You were a natural leader. You're a commissioned officer in the United States military. You're wow, that's amazing. You are a professionally trained leader. I was a grounded pound corpsman. I was a worker bee. Never wanted to be a leader. Always wanted to be a good worker bee. I'd never be on the Jedi Council. I want to be the rogue Jedi out in the field. I'll never make it to the council. You know what I mean? And nowadays, here you are with your MSN and your podcast and your leadership role. Even to me, you're a mentor to me. And in addition to everything else, and I'm still a worker bee, and yet we're both completely happy and self-satisfied in those roles. I think that's kind of beautiful in its own way. You need these different roles. And I never, when I was non-commissioned and, with my platoon officers and whatnot, I never begrudged them anything. And they never begrudged me. It was just like, this is my role, this is your role, this is what we're doing, and we got a common mission. And it's sort of like, it's just like being nurses with doctors. It's a lot like that officer enlisted role. We have the common mission. We're here to achieve a goal. And now I'm getting off topic and all that. But
bring it full circle, baby.
All right. Well, bullying or not, perspective or not, I hate to get all cheesy here, but you're going to be judged based off the way you treat others. That's just the only way to look at it. Whether you've been an RN for 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years, 5 decades, people are going to judge you. People are going to listen to you. People are going to want to be you based off of how you treat others and how you make them feel. So I can't fix things that have happened to you in the past, and I can't control the way Michael and I are going to make you feel in the future. But you can control how people feel about you every second of your life from here on out.
Patience. What is that? Who even has time for that? PIE is P-I-E. Patience in everything. It's a simple yet difficult, yet powerful thing to learn. Think about the last time you were impatient. What came of it? How patient am I with others? How patient am I with myself? How patient and kind am I with the trials and unexpected turns in life? Am I patient and fully aware of the blessings of each day? I've been given a gift, be it fruit or life. It's up to me to choose how to use it. This is a book of short essays on life through something as simple as pie. here's Coletta reading Piology 101.
Piology 101, the synchronicity of pie in life. How awesome to ponder how our Creator has put our individual ingredients so carefully together. Yet we get to choose our finishing touches and the temperature settings of the day. Sometimes we're hot, sometimes we're not. Every day is spent forming our own creation of self. Some days we also form a pie. Our ingredients of the day can be mixed up, nutty and complicated, or just sweetly simple. Fruits grown out of even the best soil and conditions may become bruised, but even imperfect fruit can become a pie to savor. Life, as imperfect as it may be, has a multitude of savory and sweet bites in each new day. Pie in life, filled to the brim with the fillings of our choice, oozing and bubbling over, and just so beautifully messy. Pie in life, any pie or day can end in failure and be perfected on the next. Pie in life, presented in pieces and are just what is left over, or sometimes well presented, well-rounded as a whole. Pie in life are made up of a beautiful variety of spices and different tastes. Pie in life, overworking can make it too tough. Pie in life, tender care will always produce a perfect foundation. Pie in life, dig in while it's fresh. Share that creation.
Get your copy of The Pie Letters by Coletta Hewitt in softcover or ebook from thepieletters.com. That's thepieletters.com, and buy your copy in softcover or ebook from thepieletters.com, or you can go to Amazon. Love you all. God bless.
You're listening to the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast.
Again, I got to start recording before I actually start recording. So, as promised, we're going to start this segment off. Welcome back. We're going to start this segment off with the 12 flight nurse commandments. So, number one.
Well, number one of the 12 flight nurse commandments from the Flight Nurse Bible, a field guide to awesomeness, available in wherever fine books are sold. The 12 flight nurse commandments. Number one, be nice.
That is
Number
solid
two,
advice for anybody.
damn straight. Number two, be situationally aware and prepared for anything. Number three, you are only as good as your last flight. Ego will get you killed. Keep it in check. Number four, do not get tunnel vision. Stop severe bleeding. Needle decompress both sides of the chest and secure the airway. That's it. Number five, take a deep breath. Calm your voice, tone, and speed. If you lower your tone, the speed will decrease. If you lower the speed, the tone will decrease, and you'll bring a calm Jedi serenity to the room. Number six, be a master of machines and know your pharmacy. The tools are only as good as the nurse using them, for real. I've seen the same nurse put in two separate situations, and the one who knew how to do stuff did more saving. It's just that simple. All right. Number seven, capnography is unimpeachable.
True.
You could make that philosophical if you want to, but it's actually just straight up practical as is. Essentially, you can't fake a capnograph. Essentially, it requires an exhale from your patient. So it's a guaranteed indicator of a patent airway. And quite often in the transport world, or anywhere for that matter, when you turn over a patient, what are they going to do after you transfer that patient? Well, they're going to start moving around, flopping around, doing stuff. It's very easy to pull an airway out. And we always take last strips of the capnograph when we transfer somebody, so we can always say, hey, we gave them to you with an airway.
So they were fine when I dropped them off.
Exactly. Yes.
God, how many...
Yeah, they were fine 5 minutes ago.
God, how many times have I heard that from medics?
Oh, my goodness.
Number eight.
Number eight, everything is your fault. Document well. That piggybacks number seven, obviously.
Holy cow, is that true?
Yeah, chart like your life depends on it. The best day of nursing school for me personally, the most educational day of all of nursing school was when they made you listen to all the depositions. where you listen to the lawyers going after the nurses for the standard of care stuff. And it scares the hell out of you.
I bet.
That was the most educational part of nursing school for me. So, yeah, document well. Your career depends on it. All right, number 9. Know when to gather your equipment and walk away slowly and quietly. Slightly morbid one, but there will be times where you've done all you can. And there will be times where the only thing to do is to make your graceful exit. So be ready to accept those moments of defeat and know when to gracefully leave the situation.
Oof.
Number 10, reassess. It's the most important piece of info to any healthcare giver. My dad taught me that when I was in diapers. I mean, reassess. You're never going to find a change in condition if you're not looking for it.
Right.
Number 11, do not walk into tail rotors.
Again,
self-explanatory.
Very solid advice.
And number 12, everybody, the most important commandment: be nice.
It's true. It's true. Like how many, I mean, we are meeting people who are, I mean, for a lot of people who come into the ER, by the time they get to me in major care, so we have like a filtering process. Our triage is absolutely great. We have a great triage system. And so, the Band-Aids and swabs kind of stuff, that gets taken care of in like a results pending, basically.
Right.
You're going to get swabbed. You might get a prescription for, whatever, but you're not going to come all the way in the hospital. You're going to sit in a little room or sit in the waiting room after we swab you, and then you're going to go home, You have very good advanced triage protocols. Yes, really awesome. Good.
That's such a blessing.
So by the time they get to me down in major care, everybody is sick. Sick.
Right.
There's
shout out to your boss that implemented that.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
I really have a lot of respect for. I've got 2 supervisors who are both phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and I've got a manager.
Lot of work to get that up and going.
Yeah, and I've got and my manager is I was gonna say he's kind of a little badass, and I don't mean to say little, because he is like he is like tiny. But he would be a perfect. He's like perfect flight. He's fun size. He's like a perfect flight nurse size. But he's small guy, big personality. Just the kind of person that you kind of want. Very forceful personality. The kind of person that you want to be on your side when things go wrong.
Well, there's a certain person out there who there's. I mean, if we're going to speak for a moment candidly about small-statured individuals, the stereotype is Napoleon syndrome. It is so nice when you meet someone who has no ego and is so super chill that totally uproots that Napoleon complex theory. That sounds like the sort of thing we're talking about here. That is so refreshing. Those are some of the most sweetest, nicest people you're ever going to meet.
Well, I think he's and I think it's a little bit different.
We don't have to fixate on it. I know that got weird. We don't have to fixate if you don't want to.
Well, I mean, I don't really think about it all that much because I'm like 6'2", but
wow.
Yeah, I know.
You and I have had many conversations, but I've actually never stood next to you, so I didn't know you were that tall. My goodness, I always wanted to be 6'2". Damn you.
Well, except for everything in the military is built for somebody who's 5'7". So that was kind of a down. There is a downside to it, but I really appreciate the fact that my manager is such a strong advocate, and the force of his personality is just something that I know that if he goes into a meeting or something like that against hospital administrators, cubicle drivers, and executives.
Cubicle drivers, that's a great term.
I am not worried about how he is going to represent us, and
that's good. You need that in your leaders,
right? It's so great. So let's convert a little bit over, because we got past the new grad, we got past the new grad kind of stuff. We did the nurse commandments, which I think are kind of universal. I don't think they're just flight nurse commandments. I think those are
not.
are great for anybody. I mean, if you're a med surge, if you're in a step down unit, you're in a med surge unit, and you're just getting somebody up from the ER, you're getting a new admission, and you're in a med surge unit. If you're not reassessing, I mean, because they're coming up. I mean, they're an hour after us doing everything we can to stabilize them. They might still be unstable.
Oh, absolutely. And to be honest, those commandments, those are that would make a motivational poster by itself. To be honest, there's nothing flight nursey necessarily about them. I mean, for example, the number 3, you're only as good as your last flight. That's actually a ripoff of Dana White. It's you're only as good as your last fight. Dana White's the president of the UFC, and I always love that quote. He's one of my heroes, and it's just a great reminder. Like some of the other ones in there, you could be a real estate agent, you could be whatever, and you could be the manager at Hardee's or something, and you're going to get some leadership advice from those commandments. And like I said, I didn't write them all by myself. They were, inspired by my father and Miss Jenny and various leaders throughout my life. And, they're by no means inclusive, but you can't write a Bible without a bunch of commandments, right? So anyway, but humility is important. We were talking about humility earlier. You're only as good as your last flight or fight or whatever. Part of growing up as a nurse, and you know this, Michael, and I definitely know it, from getting my teeth kicked in for so many years of just falling on my face, is, humility is your friend. Humility is your buddy. Humility makes you smarter, stronger, more powerful, and drives you. If you don't
preach it, brother,
screw up, if you don't screw up and get knocked down to your knees and have to, 2 steps forward for every 1 step back, then, man, where did you get it? I mean, you're just not being real, because that's going to happen to you. And if it hasn't happened yet, then just hold on, because it will. And you're going to have to bounce back from these terrible things. And maybe you made a bad decision, maybe you didn't, or sometimes there's no win situations. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and everyone's got to go sometime. And if you make caring, I say this in the book, if you make caring for the sick and dying your chosen profession, there's a good deal of suffering and chaos that's going to happen on your watch. Just because someone dies doesn't mean you killed them. But
that's a good transition. That's a good transition. So
that's right.
There's a good transition. So digging further into the book, because we concentrate a lot in the very front of the book, which is very impactful for the audience if you're in prereqs or in nursing school, or maybe you're a new grad. But if we get further into it, I really liked your chapter 13. So it's the chapter 13 is called "Winking at Death and Confronting Mortality," and I don't want to discuss it. I just want you to read it, because it's so, or at least part of it. Can you read part of it?
One of the more lengthy chapters. Okay, I'll read a portion if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Well, that's so sweet of you, Michael. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, chapter 13, page 75, winking at death and confronting mortality. I'm going to make this quick. This is me reading now. I'm going to make this quick. Every human being on Earth is part of a higher primate species named Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, just like all other species of mammal, are warm-blooded flesh suits full of meat and bone. We are susceptible to the laws of physics, whether we like it or not. In other words, we are very fragile critters. Oh, sure, as individuals, we are capable of amazing feats of strength and ability, but a lot of good that's going to do any of us when faced with high-speed MVCs, bipolar polar bears, base parachute failures, or mothers-in-law. I'm not trying to be defeatist or nihilistic here. Quite the opposite, in fact. I'm attempting to mentally approach death as sensibly, calmly, and rationally as possible. There are many easy solutions to common death causes. Increase vehicular following distance. Don't text and drive. Stop smoking. Lose some weight. See your physician routinely. Put on your seatbelt. Look both ways before crossing the street. And these are just a few quick examples off the top of my head. And it goes on and on and on. And we talk about, getting meaning out of life and appreciating the finiteness of being. We are finite in a seemingly infinite universe, and it takes a certain amount of maturity to appreciate our fragility as human beings. And I don't want to get all philosophical, but
philosophical?
The amount of philosophical, right? Yeah, some fancy word there. The amount of mortality we deal with on a day-to-day basis, it really forces us to confront a lot of these very uncomfortable realities of life. And you have to sort of, I think that every nurse deep down is sort of an amateur, sort of, I think you have an honorary doctorate in philosophy if you're an RN. Because you deal with crazy shit every day, and you're just expected to take it on the chin like a UFC fighter and just keep throwing punches. It's wild. It's so wild. And that's what makes it so special, Michael.
So let's go to certifications. You have kind of a philosophy that you talk about in the book called grip it and rip it, and this speaks directly to the new grad, the I just took my NCLEX, or I'm about to take my NCLEX kind of timeline or person. The way that you put this, I think is really great, because there are a lot of people who nobody comes through the NCLEX unscathed. Nobody walks out of the NCLEX going, well, let me rephrase. If you come out of the NCLEX and you're like, oh, I super passed that. That was super easy and blah, blah, blah. Most likely you didn't do well.
Yeah.
So nobody comes out of that unscathed, or very few people do. But after you're done with the NCLEX and you're dealing with the PTSD of taking that stupid test, now you have the opportunity to take other certification tests, and you have a philosophy called grip it and rip it, and I kind of want to hear about that.
Okay. Well, yes. And also the reason why. What's your motivation for this? Your motivation is to get ahead in your career, to get ahead in life, to get the jobs you want, to get the positions you want, the pay you want, and the locations you want. And in order to do that, you got to be competitive. You got to be the baddest dude or chick in the room. You got to be the baddest person on your block. And the way you build up this amazing resume and get these jobs that you want in these high-level positions is you take courses and you take certification exams that put post-nominal things behind your name. If you look at the cover of my book, you'll see I got a few of them. I know what I'm talking about.
A couple.
And I've been offered a lot of thank you, Michael. And I've been offered a lot of amazing opportunities in life because people see that and they realize, oh my goodness, this person's willing to just put themselves through some crazy stuff for the sake of honor, or just for the sake of learning. This person values certification. It's a huge thing. And it's the wave of the future, and it's just what's happening right now. But it's intimidating, it's expensive, it's this, that, the other, and people get in their heads about these certification exams. Well, grip it and rip it, man. You can, you can freak out, and there's all sorts of good material in the book that talks about how to take these methodically and all that. Well, the biggest part of an exam, the biggest fear, is the psychological fear of failing, or the fear of the unknown. So
right.
The two big pieces of advice with grip it and rip it is, number one, don't tell your coworkers you're going to go take a certification exam. Keep it to yourself. That way, if you fail, you're not accountable. You're just like, oh, no, I'm still studying. I got other stuff to do. Oh, I got to go to my brother's wedding, and, I'm going to start this business, and, I'll get around to it. And if you fail, who cares? You don't have to tell anybody. If you pass, you show up, and you're like, look what I did. I'm amazing. And, perfect, great. But you take the psychology out of it, and you don't have to worry about failing. Because so many people that have been nurses for really long amounts of time, and they feel like they're masters. I know 20-year ER nurses that don't have their CEN because they're scared. They're not scared. They're hardcore badass nurses. But psychologically, they're afraid of how bad they're going to look if they fail that exam, because they're supposed to be masters of the emergency department. Well, don't tell anybody. Just sign up, study, go take it, and So that's the first part of the grip it and rip it, is don't hold yourself accountable socially to it. It's not anybody's freaking business what you're working on. It's about personal growth and personal improvement. And if you set yourself up to the standards of others, anyway, there's other good advice in there too. It's also good to do it by yourself, because if you go with somebody else and they pass and you fail, you can't be happy, and they pass, you fail, they can't be happy. And so nursing is a team sport. Certification exams are not. But the main grip it and rip it focus is a lot of people spend so much time building these exams, whichever it is, the CEN, the CCRN, the CFRN, whichever one we're talking about, up in their head. And, what is it going to be? What's it going to be like? Oh, man, how am I going to do? And meanwhile, they could have just gone and taken it. It's recommended, the experience level on these things. I had my CEN 90 days after taking NCLEX, and I've since, through my LinkedIn connections and whatnot, found several other nurses that have had their NCLEX or had their CEN within a few months of passing NCLEX. Now, a lot of people are scratching their heads going, well, on the website it says a couple years recommended before they let you take that. That's a recommendation, because they want to be able to say, dude, we told you. It's hard. It's expensive. Yeah. It's hard. You better study, or you're going to feel, you're not going to be very happy when you fail this, and we don't want to be responsible. Well, it's just a recommendation. So screw that. Pay the money, take it on the chin, and just wade into this thing like an MMA fight, and maybe you'll pass. Just study for a week or two, and just go take it. And you're probably going to fail. These are hard exams, and you really need to know what's up. But either way, you're going to get your teeth kicked in, and you're going to see the dragon you're about to face,
Yep, you're going to see the dragon of chaos. You're going to see...
Right.
You're
the monster.
You at least know what you're facing. You've seen the test before. You've walked into the facility. You've done the stuff. You've seen some of the questions, and you can go, okay, well, now I know what I got to study, at least.
And you make it a huge, you write down learning deficits, knowledge deficits, things you don't know, and things that scare you, and everything that you think. Einstein has one of the most simplistic and yet beatific quotes ever of, if you can't explain something simply, you don't know it well enough. If you can't teach a middle school student about ABGs, then you don't understand ABG pathophys well enough. And that's just so freaking true. You should be able to nuts and bolts this stuff down to, and we get, as ER nurses in particular, or any critical care nurses, we're sort of the jack of all trades, master of none, sort of chaos managers in the nursing world. And that's a wonderful thing, but quite often a lot of little pathophys things can fall through the cracks. So anyway, we go into more in depth in the book with different certifications, and of course there's a huge list of resource materials that'll be available to you. This book is, like I said, it's a field guide hoping to show you the way to greatness on your own path. And I have a lot of great book references for things in there, but so many people build these things up in their mind and make it scary. Just turn it into a game, have fun with it, realize you're going to pay some expensive money to be. The most important thing in life is legacy. Who you are, what you stood for, how important you took things. Now, don't let that arrogance turn you into a jerk, but you're ultimately going to be judged on the passion you lived with. Nothing describes passion and compassion and the ability to show a love of knowledge more than certification. So I really encourage you to dive into this early on in your career and make it a passion project. Have fun with it. And, I mean, I could just do this all day. All right, you better cut me off. I'm just going to go rant.
Okay, so let's end the podcast. I want you to read one last exit excerpt, okay?
Okay.
So let's go to page 148 of.
Oh, that's great. Oh,
yeah,
yes,
let's go to page 148, and I just want you to read this last little part here, and I love it, man. I want you to end here because it's powerful and it's beautiful, and let's just do that.
Okay. Well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful day, Michael. I've had the best time, and I wish all the best to your audience and everybody listening. Stay positive, stay happy, realize it's us versus death, and you're on team life, and just do the best you can. And I hope you have a wonderful career. All right, so from page 148 of the Flight Nurse Bible, there are billions and billions of people on this beautiful blue planet, and we are all spinning through space together for the entire term of our short lives. These facts should not depress you or make you feel small. These facts should inspire and empower you to look around the world and see the many ways you can make a positive impact with your existence. If there is a greater purpose to life, it must be to serve one another passionately and alleviate suffering. We must also attempt to live as intelligently, courageously, and joyfully as possible. Semper Fi, blue skies, vaya sin Dios. Oh, and one more thing, Michael. No matter what you do not walk into a tail rotor. All right, love you, everybody. Signing out from San Diego.
So, wait a minute. Before you go, if there was only some place you could go to buy this book, I know it's impossible. I know it's impossible, and there's no way to find this book online or to buy a physical copy of it.
Difficult. It's neon pink with hot orange letters on the cover. Is all over Amazon.com. It's all over social media, particularly LinkedIn, and of course, links through the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast and all Michael's outlets. And you Google search it; it'll pop up all sorts of resources for that. And like it, love it, hate it. You're gonna get something out of it, and by all means, let me know what you think. Michael and I are servants at the end of the day, and we're here for you. And so, thank you so much, Michael, and everybody. Let us know what you think about Michael's amazing podcast series, and let me know what you think about my book. I hope you like it.
Thank you so much,
Michael.
Nurse Rob. Thank you so much for your time. To all my listening audience, go out and buy a copy of the book. It's what's it called again? I can't remember.
The Flight Nurse Bible, a field guide to awesomeness, available wherever fine books are sold.
Beautiful. All right, Nurse Rob, thank you so much for coming on. I truly enjoyed our two-part podcast, which we didn't plan on, but once you get going, you just got to go. You just got to do it. So, thank you so much. I think we're going to have to come back and do this again because I think there's more conversations for us to have.
I think we are brothers from another mother. I've had the greatest time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody, here is the announcement. We are going to draw for one of the Yeti Rambler bottles today, and I've got everybody's name. It took way longer than it should have for me to figure out who had all the entries and all that kind of stuff. I kind of made the rules a little bit more complicated than I kind of meant to. So, on the next go-around, I'll try to make it a little bit easier, try to streamline this whole thing. Again, I'm still learning, and it's just me, so, no big deal. It's just me. Okay, so here's the deal. I've got everybody's name in a box. Here we go. You can hear everybody's name. I wrote them all on individual little pieces of paper and put them in a very expensive cardboard Coke box. It's a very expensive. Coke is not a sponsor, but we're going to go with it anyway. So here's all the names. Let me reach into the box and draw out a name. All right. So our name for this first week of giveaways is Amber RN Fit. I think that's how it goes. Amber RN Fit. So from Instagram, Amber RN Fit. If that's you need to write into the show at realtalknursing@gmail.com, or you can contact us through Instagram Facebook Messenger, or even Twitter. So again, amberrnfit.com, or you can contact us, you can contact us through Gmail, just a regular email at realtalknursing@gmail.com, or Facebook Messenger or Instagram. You can contact us through Instagram or even Twitter. Twitter's the kind of the redheaded stepchild of the group, and I'm sorry, but Facebook is kind of becoming that same way too. They make everything so darn complicated right now. They just make it really hard for people to just like the page. I'm not really sure why, but we'll try to figure it out. But for simplicity's sake, for this week, we're going to go with Amber RN Fit. Now, for those of you who also entered in, here's what I'm going to do to just make things a little bit simpler, because this was way too complicated, because, again, I didn't mean to make it as complicated as it was. So if you had one entry for this first drawing, I'm going to keep one of your entries and put it back into the box, so you have a chance to win in the next week. So Amber RN Fit will have first pick of the bottles. So there's the light green, the blue, and then the shift report, red. And she can pick whatever she wants out of that, and then we'll do the two other bottles over the next couple of drawings, and then we'll do the coolers and the Yeti Camino carry-all bag. And we'll basically leapfrog through all that. So it's going to be great. Thanks for joining me on the show. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you next week. Make sure you write into the show. Love ya. This concludes the interview with Nurse Rob and his book, The Flight Nurse Bible, A Field Guide to Awesomeness. This Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is a Real Talk production. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my former platoon sergeant, David Schroeder. Iron Rangers, duty first. To his wife, my dear friend Ellery, my love and support.
Sic semper tyrannis, facta non verba.
Good night, Steve Cannon, wherever you are. Annyeong kasayo. Now you go home.
If you like the show, the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Libsyn Web Player, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So, go wherever you download podcasts, subscribe, rate us, review us, write into the show, and smash that subscribe button. Remember, only leave 5-star reviews. That's the only rating that counts to get us noticed by more nursing students. Write into the show at realtalknursing@gmail.com or on Facebook Messenger. You can also join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're building a community of fun, supportive nursing students, and I want you to be part of this crazy nursing school journey.
The Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is a holy moly, I can't believe you're still listening to this podcast.